The silver ship came down from the sky like a falling star, but slower and quieter than Jake Morrison expected. He was fixing the fence on his ranch when he first saw it, just a bright dot against the blue Montana sky. At first, he thought it might be one of those military jets from the base nearby, but jets don't hover like that, and they sure don't land in his back pasture without making a sound. Jake pulled off his work gloves and watched the strange craft settle down between his cattle and the old oak tree. The cows didn't seem to mind much. They just kept eating grass like nothing had happened. Jake figured if the cows weren't worried, maybe he shouldn't be either. The ship was about the size of a school bus, smooth and shiny like a new dime. No wings, no wheels, nothing that looked like it should fly. Jake had seen plenty of aircraft in his 62 years, but nothing like this. He pulled out his phone and called his neighbor. "Lisa, you need to get over here right now," he said when she picked up. "What's wrong, Jake? Is it the cattle again?" "No, it's not the cattle. Just get over here. Bring your binoculars." Lisa Cooper had been Jake's neighbor for 15 years. She used to fly jets for the Air Force before she retired and moved to Montana. If anyone would know what this thing was, it would be her. While he waited, Jake walked closer to the ship. He could hear a soft humming sound coming from it, like the refrigerator in his kitchen, but quieter. The metal looked perfect, not a scratch or dent anywhere. No rust, no dirt, nothing that showed it had traveled far. A door opened on the side of the ship, sliding up without any sound. Jake stopped walking and waited. 3 figures stepped out, and Jake knew right away they weren't from around here. They weren't from anywhere on Earth. The aliens were tall and thin, maybe 7 feet high but skinny as fence posts. Their skin was pale gray and their heads were too big for their bodies. They had large black eyes that reminded Jake of his old dog, except these eyes were much bigger and didn't look friendly. They wore tight silver suits that matched their ship. The one in front held up a small device and pointed it at Jake. Words came out of it, but they sounded strange and mechanical. "Greetings, primitive human. We are explorers from the Zephyrian Empire. We come in peace to study your simple civilization." Jake scratched his head under his baseball cap. Primitive? Simple? He looked around at his ranch. Sure, it wasn't fancy, but he had electric fences, solar panels on his barn, and a satellite dish on his house. His truck was only 2 years old, and his tractor had GPS. Not exactly what he'd call primitive. "We have traveled many light years to reach your world," the alien continued through his translator. "Our records show your species has only recently discovered fire and basic tools." Jake almost laughed. "Son, I think your records might be a little out of date." The sound of helicopter blades cut through the air. Lisa was coming in her old military chopper, the one she bought at auction and fixed up herself. Jake waved at her as she circled overhead, taking pictures of the alien ship. The 3 aliens looked up at the helicopter with confusion. The leader pointed his translator at the sky. "What is that flying machine? Our data shows your species cannot achieve flight." "That's my neighbor Lisa," Jake said. "She's probably calling the Air Force right about now." Sure enough, Jake's phone started ringing. It was Lisa on her radio. "Jake, I'm seeing something impossible down there. Are those really aliens?" "Yep, that's what they look like to me. I already called Colonel Williams. He's sending a team out. You might want to step back from them." Jake looked at the aliens, who were now staring at his phone with the same confused expression they had given the helicopter. "Is that device communicating across long distances instantly?" the leader asked. "It's just a phone," Jake said. "Everyone has one." The alien leader turned to his companions and spoke in their own language. Jake couldn't understand the words, but their tone sounded worried. "Our information must be incorrect," the leader said through his translator. "How long ago did your species develop this technology?" "Phones? We've had them for over 100 years. Cell phones like this one, maybe 40 years. The aliens looked at each other again. The leader held up a different device and scanned Jake from head to toe. "This is impossible. Our last probe report was only 200 years ago. It showed your species using simple tools and riding 4-legged animals for transport." Jake pointed to his truck parked by the barn. "Well, I still got horses, but I mostly drive that truck now. Gets better gas mileage." the rumble of heavy vehicles, came from the dirt road leading to Jake's ranch. A convoy of military trucks was heading their way, dust clouds rising behind them. The aliens turned toward the sound with growing alarm. "How did your military forces arrive so quickly?" the leader demanded. "You landed next to a cell tower," Jake said, pointing to the tall metal structure on the hill. "Lisa called the base, they tracked her GPS, and here they are. Took them about 20 minutes, that's pretty fast, even for them." The convoy stopped at Jake's gate. Soldiers jumped out of the trucks and took positions around the area. An officer walked up to Jake, keeping his rifle pointed at the ground but ready to use it. "Sir, I'm Colonel Williams. Are you safe?" "Safe as can be, Colonel. These folks seem friendly enough, just a little confused about what year it is." The alien leader stepped forward. "I am Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. We come in peace to study your primitive civilization." Colonel Williams looked at the aliens, then at their ship, then back at Jake. "Primitive? Sir, did you explain to them about satellites? Because we've been tracking their ship since it entered our solar system 3 days ago." Captain Veltar's big black eyes got even bigger. "You have space monitoring technology?" "Among other things," the colonel said. "We need to have a longer conversation about this. Jake, would you mind if we set up a meeting area on your property?" Jake looked at the aliens, who were now huddled together talking in worried voices. He looked at the soldiers, who were professional but clearly ready for trouble. He looked at his cows, who were still eating grass like nothing unusual was happening. "Sure thing, Colonel. Just keep them away from the cattle, and tell your boys to watch out for the electric fence." Captain Veltar turned to his companions with what Jake figured was the alien version of panic in his voice. Through the translator, Jake heard him say, "We may have made a serious error in our research." 3 days later, the meeting was happening in a big tent that the military had put up on Jake Morrison's ranch. The tent had air conditioning, tables, chairs, and enough power cables to light up a small town. Captain Veltar and his 2 alien friends sat on one side of the main table, looking very uncomfortable in chairs that were made for humans. Dr. Kate Sullivan sat across from them. She was the best diplomat the government could find on short notice. Next to her was Dr. Ryan Foster, who studied animals and was the closest thing they had to someone who might understand alien biology. At the end of the table sat Ben Torres, a young man whose job was supposed to be taking pictures and writing reports. Nobody had told Ben he wasn't supposed to post things on social media. "Let me understand this correctly," Dr. Sullivan said, looking at her notes. "Your people sent a probe to Earth 200 years ago and you based your entire mission on that old information?" Captain Veltar shifted in his chair. The translator box on the table made his voice sound flat and emotionless, but his body language suggested he was embarrassed. "Yes. The probe sent back data showing your species had only recently discovered agriculture. We expected to find small villages and simple farming communities." Dr. Foster leaned forward. "But didn't you send any updated probes? Any follow-up missions? Our species does not believe in disturbing developing civilizations unnecessarily. We sent one probe, received our data, and planned accordingly." Ben Torres tried not to laugh. He was live-streaming parts of the meeting on his phone, and the comments were coming in fast. Someone had already created a meme showing the aliens, with the caption, "When you don't update your GPS for 200 years. "Captain Veltar," Dr. Sullivan continued, "would you like to see what human civilization actually looks like today?" She opened her laptop and turned it toward the aliens. The screen showed a video of New York City at night, with millions of lights and thousands of cars moving through the streets. The 3 aliens stared at the screen. One of them made a sound that the translator couldn't convert into words. "Captain," Veltar touched the edge of the laptop screen with one long, thin finger. "How many humans live in this place?" he asked. "About 8 million in the city itself, 20 million in the area around it." The alien in the middle, who had introduced himself as Science Officer Zeklon, spoke for the first time. "This is impossible. Our probe showed your entire species numbered less than 50 million individuals." "Well, we're up to almost 8 billion now," Dr. Foster said casually. All 3 aliens made that untranslatable sound again. Dr. Sullivan showed them more videos. Highways full of cars, airports with hundreds of planes, cargo ships bigger than football fields. She showed them the International Space Station, rockets launching to Mars, and satellites orbiting Earth. "We have been monitoring your communications," Captain Veltar said quietly. "But we thought it was some kind of natural phenomenon." "What did you think was causing all those radio signals?" Ben asked, forgetting he was supposed to be quiet. "We believed your planet had unusual electromagnetic properties." Ben couldn't help himself. He held up his phone and started recording. "So you guys have been listening to our TV shows and radio stations for decades, and you thought it was just weird. Space noise?" "Ben," Dr. Sullivan warned, but it was too late. Ben was already posting the video with the caption, "Aliens thought our Wi-Fi was magic space energy." Within an hour, weird space noise was trending worldwide. The meeting continued, getting more embarrassing for the aliens by the minute. When they proudly demonstrated their advanced energy weapon, Dr. Foster politely pointed out that it was less powerful than the laser pointer he used for presentations. When they showed off their computer system, Dr. Sullivan's laptop processed information faster. "This cannot be accurate," Science Officer Zeklon insisted. "Your technology appears to be more advanced than ours in several areas." "Well, we've had a lot of practice," Dr. Sullivan said. "Humans are very good at improving things quickly." Captain Veltar activated another device. "Observe our most impressive achievement, instantaneous communication across vast distances of space." He spoke into the device, and after a few seconds, a voice answered from their home planet. The aliens looked proud of their demonstration. Ben Torres held up his phone. "You mean like this?" He touched the screen a few times, and suddenly his grandmother's face appeared. She was sitting in her kitchen in Los Angeles drinking coffee. "Hi, Benny," she said. "Are those the aliens everyone's talking about on the news?" The three aliens stared at the phone screen. Captain Veltar's translator made a crackling sound, as if it couldn't figure out what to say. "Grandma, I'm in a meeting," Ben whispered. "Oh, sorry, honey. Tell the aliens I said welcome to Earth. Do they want me to send cookies?" Ben ended the call and put his phone down. The aliens were still staring at the spot where his grandmother's face had been. "That device can connect to any other device on your planet?" Science Officer Zeklon asked. "Pretty much anywhere in the world, yeah. And we can video call, send pictures, watch movies, play games, buy stuff, read books, listen to music, and about a million other things." The alien who hadn't spoken much, Engineer Mortek, finally said something. "How long has your species possessed this technology?" "Smartphones? Maybe 15 years for most people." 15 years, Engineer Mortek repeated. "We have been developing our long-distance communication system for 300 years. Dr. Sullivan closed her laptop. "Captain Veltar, I think we need to have a more serious conversation about why you're really here." The alien captain looked at his companions, then back at the humans. "We came to study your primitive culture and possibly establish a research outpost. And now? Now we are beginning to understand that we may have made the largest intelligence failure in the history of our species." Outside the tent, Jake Morrison was watching the news on his truck's dashboard screen. Every major network was covering the story. Social media was going crazy with alien memes. The stock market was having its best day in years because everyone was excited about alien technology, even though the alien technology wasn't actually very good. Jake's phone rang. It was his brother in Texas. "Jake, are you really hosting aliens? On your ranch?" "Yep. Nice folks, just a little behind the times." "Behind the times how?" Jake watched through the tent window as Ben Torres was now showing the aliens how to take selfies. "Well, let's just say they're not as smart as they thought they were." The conversation in the tent was getting more intense. Dr. Sullivan was explaining human history, human technology, and human military capabilities. The aliens were learning that they hadn't just misunderstood human civilization. They had misunderstood it so badly that their entire species' understanding of the universe was wrong. And the worst part, from their perspective, was that thanks to Ben Torres and social media, everyone on Earth was watching them figure it out. The aliens wanted to see the internet. Dr. Kate Sullivan had tried to explain it to them, but Captain Veltar kept asking the same question over and over. All of your species' knowledge is stored in one place that everyone can access? Not exactly one place, Dr. Helen Brooks said. She was a historian who had been called in to help explain human civilization to the confused aliens. It's more like millions of places all connected together. Dr. Brooks had set up 3 laptops in the tent. Each alien sat in front of one, learning how to use a mouse and keyboard. It was like watching children learn to write. Except these children were 7 feet tall and came from another star system. Science Officer Zeklon was the first to understand how search engines worked. He typed in human history and got back millions of results. For the next hour, he didn't say a word. He just read and clicked and read some more. His big black eyes got bigger with every page. Engineer Mortek was more interested in human technology. He found videos of rockets launching, computers being built, and cars being manufactured. He watched a video of the first moon landing 3 times before he believed it was real. When did this happen? He asked Dr. Brooks. 1969. About 56 years ago. But our probe data from 200 years ago showed your species had not even achieved flight. We figured out flight in 1903. We went from first flight to landing on the moon in 66 years. Mortek stared at the screen showing human astronauts walking on the lunar surface. 66 years, he whispered. Captain Veltar was having the hardest time. He had found human entertainment and couldn't understand any of it. Dr. Brooks had to explain movies, television shows, video games, and sports. When she showed him a video of a football game, he watched in horror as humans deliberately crashed into each other. Why do they injure themselves for entertainment, he asked. It's not really about getting hurt. It's about competition, strategy, teamwork. But they could be seriously damaged. Sometimes that's part of what makes it exciting. Captain Steve Anderson walked into the tent while the aliens were learning about human sports. Steve was a Navy SEAL who had been assigned to security, but he was curious about the aliens too. He was tall, muscular, and moved like a man who was always ready for a fight. What are you showing them? Steve asked Dr. Brooks. Football. They don't understand why humans do dangerous things for fun. Steve laughed. Wait until they see extreme sports. He took over Engineer Mortek's laptop and pulled up videos of people skydiving, bungee jumping, rock climbing, and surfing giant waves. The aliens watched in shocked silence as humans threw themselves off cliffs, jumped out of airplanes, and rode motorcycles at impossible speeds. These humans are not afraid of death? Captain Veltar asked. We're afraid of it, Steve said. We just don't let fear stop us from living. But why would you voluntarily put yourself in danger? Because it's fun. Because it makes us feel alive, because we can. Science Officer Zeklon had moved on from history to human physical capabilities. He found videos of Olympic athletes, strongman competitions, and endurance races. He watched a woman named Maria Santos finish a 100-mile ultramarathon in the desert. This female ran for over 24 hours without stopping? That's right, Dr. Brooks said. Some humans can run even longer than that. How is this possible? Our species requires rest every few hours. Steve grinned. Humans are persistence. Hunters. We evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're basically built to never give up. The aliens looked at Steve with new understanding. He wasn't just tall and strong. He was a member of a species that had evolved to be relentless. Show them Danny Kim, Dr. Brooks suggested. Steve pulled up a video of a young man climbing a sheer rock face with no ropes, no safety equipment, just his hands and feet. Danny climbed for hours, moving up a cliff that looked impossible to scale. Has no support system, Engineer Mortek observed. If he falls, he dies. Yep, that's free solo climbing. He's climbing because he wants to, not because he has to. Captain Veltar was reading about human wars, page after page of battles, strategies, weapons, and conflicts. He learned about World War II, the Roman Empire, the Mongol conquests, and modern military technology. Your species has been fighting continuously for thousands of years, he said to Dr. Brooks. Pretty much, yes. And you have detailed records of all these conflicts? We study war so we can get better at it. And hopefully, so we can avoid it when possible. You study warfare as an academic subject? Steve nodded. Every military academy in the world teaches the history of warfare. We learn from our mistakes and from our victories. General Frank Miller chose that moment to enter the tent. He was an older man with gray hair and the kind of steady presence that suggested he had seen everything the world could throw at him. How are our guests doing? He asked. They're learning about human civilization, Dr. Brooks replied. It's been educational for everyone. General Miller looked at the laptops showing videos of human achievements, human conflicts, and human capabilities. Captain Veltar, I hope you're getting a better picture of who we are. Yes, General, much better than we expected. Good, because I have something to show you that might interest you. The General opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder marked Top Secret. This is our file on your species. We've been monitoring your radio transmissions for 30 years. We know about your home planet, your other colonies, your technology, and your military capabilities. The three aliens stared at the folder. We know about the other 6 species in this part of the galaxy. We've been tracking their ships, listening to their communications, and preparing for contact. You're actually the 4th species to visit our solar system. The others were smart enough to do proper research before making contact. Captain Veltar's translator made a sound like electronic choking. You have been expecting us? We've been expecting someone like you for decades. We just thought you'd be better prepared. Science Officer Zeklon looked up from his laptop. General, how long did it take your species to develop spaceflight after achieving basic civilization? Depends on how you define basic civilization. From the first cities to the first satellites, about 5,000 years. From powered flight to spaceflight, about 60 years. And how long from spaceflight to interstellar capability? General Miller smiled. We'll let you know when we get there. Shouldn't be too much longer. The tent was quiet except for the hum of air conditioning and the sound of alien minds being completely changed forever. The morning sky over Jake Morrison's ranch suddenly filled with alien ships. Not 3 ships like before, but dozens of them. They came down from space like silver raindrops, each one bigger than Captain Veltar's scout ship. Jake was drinking coffee on his porch when the invasion fleet arrived. He pulled out his phone and called General Miller. Frank, you might want to get out here. We got company. General Patricia Hayes was in the Pentagon when the alarm started going off. She had been expecting this call ever since the first alien ship landed. The scout mission had failed to report back on schedule, which meant either the scouts were dead or they had found something they didn't expect. How many ships? She asked her aide. 43 confirmed, ma'am. More coming through the upper atmosphere. Size? Each one is about the size of a city block. They're taking positions above major population centers. General Hayes had been preparing for this moment for 15 years. She picked up the red phone that connected her directly to military bases around the world. This is Hayes. Execute Protocol 7. All units to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Admiral Crixtie stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at Earth through the main viewing screen. The planet looked peaceful and green. His scanner showed primitive radio signals and basic technology. Everything was exactly as the probe data had predicted. Deploy the subjugation fleet, he ordered his officers. Standard formation. This should take no more than a few hours. Admiral Crixtie had conquered 17 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire. He was experienced, efficient, and completely confident that Earth would surrender quickly once they saw his superior technology. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving multiple signals from the surface. Surrender messages. Already, these humans learn quickly. No, sir, they appear to be instructions. Instructions? They're telling us where to land and what forms to fill out for diplomatic contact. Admiral Crixtie frowned. Forms? On the International Space Station, Commander Jeff Parker was coordinating humanity's first space battle. The station had been secretly upgraded over the past 10 years with weapons systems that most humans didn't know existed. Houston, this is ISS Command. I have visual contact with 43 alien vessels. They are not responding to diplomatic channels. Copy that, Jeff. Are you ready to proceed with defensive measures? Jeff looked at his crew. They were all military personnel, trained for this exact situation. Roger, Houston. Engaging defensive. Protocols now. The space station split apart like a flower opening. Hidden panels slid away to reveal weapon systems, communication arrays, and launch tubes. 3 smaller combat ships separated from the main station, each one piloted by humans who had trained in secret for years. Admiral Krixtai watched in confusion as the small space station suddenly became a military fortress. "What is that structure doing?" he asked his weapons officer. "Sir, it appears to be transforming." Transforming into what? The answer came in the form of energy beams that struck his flagship's shields. The beams were more powerful than anything in the Zephyrian arsenal. "Sir, we are under attack. How is this possible?" Dr. Carl Jenkins had been waiting 30 years for this day. His secret research facility in Nevada was built specifically to reverse engineer alien technology. Over the decades, they had recovered pieces of crashed alien ships from 4 different species. Each piece had been studied, improved, and turned into human weapons. "Activate the grid," he told his team. Around the world, satellite dishes turned toward the sky. They looked like ordinary communication satellites, but they were actually weapons platforms. Each one was powered by fusion reactors and armed with particle beam weapons that were based on alien designs but built with human improvements. The first alien ship to get hit was above New York City. The beam struck it so hard that the ship's shields collapsed immediately. The ship didn't explode. It just stopped working and started falling. Emergency systems kicked in and lowered it safely to the ground, but the ship was completely powerless. "What just happened?" Admiral Krixtai demanded. "Sir, the humans have some kind of space-based weapons system. Ship 7 has been disabled." "Disabled? Not destroyed?" "They appear to be using non-lethal force, sir." Captain Nina Rodriguez was piloting the first human spacecraft designed for ship-to-ship combat. It looked like a cross between a fighter jet and a rocket, but it was faster and more maneuverable than anything the aliens had ever seen. "Alien vessel, this is Captain Rodriguez of Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." The alien ship she was targeting tried to run. Nina's ship caught up to it in seconds. Her weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. A few precise shots and the alien ship was drifting powerless in space. "Houston, this is Rodriguez. Target, secured. Moving to next vessel." Admiral Krixtai was watching his invasion fleet get picked apart by humans who were supposed to be primitive. His ships were being disabled one by weapons that were more advanced than his own. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked. 12 disabled, sir. No casualties, but the ships are completely powerless." "And how many human ships are we facing?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to have both space-based and ground-based weapons. Some of their weapons platforms are disguised as civilian satellites." On the ground, Sergeant Mike Thompson was leading a special forces team to secure one of the crashed alien ships. They had been training for alien contact scenarios for 5 years. They knew exactly what to do. "Remember, we want prisoners, not casualties," he told his men. "These guys are probably just following orders." The alien ship had landed in a field outside Denver. Thompson's team surrounded it quickly and efficiently. When the aliens came out with their hands up, Thompson was surprised by how scared they looked. "Don't hurt us," one of them said through a translator device. "We surrender." "Nobody's going to hurt you," Thompson said. "We just need to ask you some questions." President Karen Martinez stood in the Oval Office watching the battle on multiple screens. Every major news network was covering the invasion, but they were all calling it the most polite space battle in history, because no one was actually getting killed. "Madam President," her advisor said, "Admiral Krixtai is requesting to speak with you directly." "Put him through." The alien admiral appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and confused. "I am Admiral Krixtai of the Zephyrian Empire. I demand to know why your species is so well prepared for our arrival." President Martinez smiled. "Admiral, we've been monitoring your communications for 30 years. We've been tracking your ships for weeks. We've been preparing for this conversation for decades. We just didn't want to be rude and mention it earlier. You knew we were coming?" "We knew someone was coming. We just thought whoever it was would do better research first." Admiral Krixtai looked around his bridge at his defeated officers. "What are your terms for our surrender? First, let's not call it a surrender, let's call it a learning experience. The United Nations building in New York had never hosted aliens before. Admiral Crixtie sat at a long table with his remaining officers, looking very uncomfortable in chairs made for humans. Across from them sat Ambassador Tony Garcia, President Martinez, and General Hayes. The room was full of reporters, diplomats, and security personnel from every major nation on Earth. "Let me make sure I understand the situation," Ambassador Garcia said, reading from his notes. "You invaded our planet with 43 ships, expecting to find primitive humans with basic tools. Instead, you found a technologically advanced civilization that disabled your entire fleet without killing a single alien." "That is correct," Admiral Crixtie said through his translator. His voice sounded tired and embarrassed. "And now you're asking for permission to leave peacefully. We are requesting safe passage back to our home system, yes." President Martinez leaned forward. "Admiral, we need to discuss what happens next. Your fleet came here to conquer Earth. That's an act of war." The alien admiral's big black eyes looked even more worried. "We understand your anger. We acted on incomplete information." "Actually, we're not angry," President Martinez said. "We're disappointed. We expected better from a species capable of interstellar travel." Dr. Emma Wright stood up from her seat at the side table. She was an anthropologist who had been studying the aliens for the past week. "Admiral, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "In all your years of space exploration, has your species ever made this kind of mistake before?" Admiral Crixtie looked at his officers before answering. "No. We have always conducted thorough research before making contact with new civilizations." "Then why didn't you research us?" The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "Our probe data indicated your species was primitive. We saw no need for additional research. And that arrogance nearly started a war." "Yes." Professor Sam Mitchell, a history teacher who had been brought in to help with cultural exchange, raised his hand. "Admiral, what would have happened if we actually had been primitive? If we were still using stone tools and living in small villages? We would have established research stations to study your development. We would have introduced technology slowly, over several generations. Without asking our permission, primitive species cannot give informed consent." The room was quiet. Every human in the building was thinking the same thing. The aliens had come to Earth planning to treat humans like animals in a zoo. General Hayes spoke up. "Admiral, I want to show you something." She turned on a large screen that showed satellite images of Earth. Cities covered in lights, roads connecting every continent, ships crossing the oceans, and airplanes flying between countries. This is what Earth looks like at night. Every light represents human activity. We have cities with millions of people, transportation networks that span the globe, and communication systems that connect every corner of the planet. She changed the image to show the International Space Station, satellites orbiting Earth, and human missions to Mars. We've been in space for over 60 years. We've landed on our moon, sent probes to every planet in our solar system, and we're planning permanent colonies on Mars within the next decade. The final image showed human military forces around the world, armies, navies, air forces, and space defense systems. We have weapons that could destroy every ship in your fleet. We could have turned this into a real war, but we chose not to. Admiral, Crixtie stared at the images. "Why did you show restraint?" "Because we understand the difference between aggression and ignorance," President Martinez said. "You didn't come here to hurt us. You came here because you didn't know any better." Captain Veltar, who had been sitting quietly through the entire meeting, finally spoke up. "What can we do to make this right?" Ambassador Garcia smiled. "That's the right question, Captain. Here's what we propose." He pulled out a thick document and placed it on the table. "First, your fleet will leave Earth space peacefully. We'll provide you with updated information about human civilization to take back to your government. Second, you'll help us establish communication with other alien species in this sector. We want to make contact with our neighbors, and we want to do it properly. Third, we're offering a cultural exchange program. Some of your people can stay here to learn about humans, and some of our people will visit your worlds to learn about you. Dr. Julie Anderson, a linguist who had been working with the aliens, added, "We think there's a lot we can learn from each other, but next time, we want to do it as equals." Admiral Crixtie looked at his officers, then back at the humans. "These terms are more generous than we deserve, maybe," General Hayes said. "But we're hoping you'll learn from this experience." 3 months later, Jake Morrison was back to fixing fences on his ranch, but now he had help. A young Zephyrian named Teclon was learning about human agriculture while working on the ranch. The alien was surprisingly good with cattle, even though he was afraid of horses. "Jake," Teclon said through his improved translator, "why do humans keep animals for food when you can manufacture protein artificially?" "Because cows are more than just food," Jake explained. "They're part of the ecosystem. They eat grass, fertilize the soil, and help maintain the land. Plus, they taste better than artificial protein. You have a complex relationship with your environment. We have a complex relationship with everything." That evening, Jake watched the news on his truck's dashboard screen. The lead story was about humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Zephyrian homeworld. Captain Steve Anderson was leading a team of human ambassadors to establish formal relations with the alien government. The second story was about other alien species making contact with Earth. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about what happened with the Zephyrian invasion. Now, every alien civilization in the area was sending properly researched diplomatic missions to Earth. The third story made Jake laugh. The Zephyrian government had issued new regulations for all future exploration missions. Every probe would be updated every 50 years. Every contact mission would require extensive research. And every species would be treated with respect, regardless of their apparent level of development. The regulation was officially called the Earth Protocol, but everyone in the galaxy was calling it something else. They called it the Do Your Homework Rule. Jake's phone rang. It was his brother in Texas again. "Jake, I just saw on the news that 3 more alien species want to visit Earth next month." "Yep, seems we're popular now. Are they going to land on your ranch too?" Jake looked at Teclon, who was sitting on the porch steps studying human agricultural techniques on Jake's old laptop. "I hope not," Jake said. "I'm running out of pasture space." But privately, Jake was proud. Humanity had faced its first real test with alien contact, and they had passed with flying colors. They had been strong enough to defend themselves, but wise enough to choose peace. They had been prepared for war, but they had chosen diplomacy. Most importantly, they had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Never underestimate your neighbors, and always do your research first. Somewhere in space, new alien ships were heading toward Earth. But these ships came with gifts, diplomatic credentials, and complete files on human civilization. The age of proper first contact had begun.